Welcome back to Real Estate Simplified. Kristyn, one of your fortes is beautifying homes and getting people the best bang for their buck. But on a renovation standpoint, let's say somebody's bought their home, they love the area, now they want to make the home exactly what they want. Where do you suggest they start in terms of getting the process going for embarking on that renovation project?
I think really thinking about how you want to use the space, what your inspiration is, and, looking at what makes sense down the line too, and making sure that you still have that resale value. Upgrading kitchens and bathrooms always have a huge return, and I think that that's always a really good place to start, even on the front side of it. Making sure that your kitchens and bathrooms are up to date are always a really great investment. But thinking about, down the line, is this going to be your forever home? What makes sense? And I think thinking about really how you want to feel in the space is always where I like to start with clients.
Yeah, for sure. You always want to have that lived-in feel, as you said before. So, Justin, what are some common mistakes you're seeing people making when they're embarking on these major renovations? What should they be looking out for?
Cost savings, obviously. I think people are spending a little too much on certain areas for personal taste and not getting the return on investment afterwards, if that's the route they're going to go.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because I know, a lot of people will say, yeah, I want the best of the best because, I'm going to be here forever. Chances are you're going to be selling the property at some point. So, what are some examples of where people splurge where they probably shouldn't?
I'm notoriously guilty of it. I spend a little too much on the fit and finishes of a lot of things that people obviously would look past in a normal scenario. So. Yeah. Interior doors, I did solid wood doors, and most people wouldn't even notice the difference. So if it's just about aesthetic, go that route, spend the money there, and you're going to get the high return afterwards from that aspect.
Yeah, well, there's the saying, like, buyers don't pay for what they can't see.
Exactly.
So, yeah. And so how can people then plan for better home renovations? Because, by the time that your team gets involved, somebody probably has a decent idea of what they're looking to do, and then they're looking for you for some advice. So, how do you walk people through that process?
I would suggest always kind of looking for the future and the potential that you are always going to sell. So future-proofing yourself in the renovation by accommodating 4 bedrooms as opposed to the 1 bedroom you want in your home. So just doing future-proofing is the best case scenario for that.
Yeah, exactly. And Kristyn, how can people really maximize the value of their home? Because, you talked about kitchens and bathrooms, but, you can't just renovate your kitchen and leave the rest of the house. So how do people tie everything together for maximum impact?
I think really thinking about streamlining things. So, often we recommend to, have a same paint color throughout so that there's consistency. But, really making sure that you have there is no up and down in the way that we do things and tying in that same look and feel throughout the house. Things like light fixtures are a really good way to maintain consistency throughout the house if we're looking at the same sort of finishes, the same colors throughout. And then, with those finishing pieces, we can add a little bit more dimension throughout the home.
Yeah, for sure. And Justin, when it comes to actually managing the renovation project, how can somebody, because it can be a pretty big undertaking, what kind of tips do you have for somebody to kind of make it a little bit more manageable?
Hire the appropriate contractor for the job. That's first and foremost the most important thing. I see it too far often where they go cheap at the initial stage, and then as the project goes on, incremental costs are arriving. And if a contractor has the foresight to see that from the beginning and give you a bigger number, it's usually the best case scenario for you.
Yeah, well, you always want your surprises up front with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, when it comes to actually hiring an architect and getting it, what should people be looking for? Because I think a lot of homeowners, they just think, I just need to find a architect. Mm-hmm. Are there criteria they should be following to pick the best one?
I think it's the best fit for you. It's a really personal thing that you're doing for your clients. So finding someone that can fit within your standards and aesthetic is going to work out in your best interest for sure.
Yeah. So, if somebody's like interviewing an architect or a design team, what kind of questions should they be asking?
Obviously, timelines is a huge one nowadays. So if it doesn't fit within the timeline at the beginning, then obviously keep looking. But it's just about being able to be easygoing with the whole scenario. There's going to be things that come up and that need answered. So finding someone who can accommodate that for you is going to work in your favor.
Yeah, 100%. Nobody wants a behind or a behind schedule renovation.
Exactly.
Kristyn, you're doing some really neat things on the design front in Oakville and in Halton. When it comes to actually buying the furniture and buying finishings and really, you've done all the renovation work and now you're adding the pretty stuff around it. What's the secret to picking out the right items to put inside your home?
Oh, the secret. I think that it really is, decorating is so personal, and I don't think that there is really a right or wrong way to do it. It's just, for me, it's getting to know and understand that client and being able to deliver to them something that suits their personal style and how they want to live in that space. So I wouldn't say that there is really any secrets, but just really understanding what you like, what you don't like, and again, how you want to feel in the space and what the end goal is. I think function is really important in that, and it's very opposite to what we do in staging, where there is no functionality to anything that we do. But again, just, it's such a personal thing, and this isn't something that is necessarily have something to do with resale value, right? It's how you're going to live and how you're going to spend every day in your home. So making sure that that really is a reflection of you.
Yeah. And what would you say is the most interesting piece of furniture you've acquired for somebody?
Most interesting piece. Actually, right now we're doing a custom tea cabinet for a client. She's traveled a lot and really liked in hotels where they had, a little coffee or tea cabinet in the hotel room where she could make something. And it's quite a large house where they're going to be having people staying with them for overseas for a certain amount of time. So she really wanted to be able to have something in her bedroom where she could make a cup of tea and have a little moment for herself before going to face the world. So we really customized, how much tea she was going to have and where the kettle was going to be and the height of that, and did custom finishes to be able to tie in with the rest of the room so that it looked like a piece of furniture.
Oh, that's pretty interesting. And
Yeah.
Justin, we were talking about the buyer doesn't pay for what they can't see. That's
Exactly.
a perfect example of something where it is pretty cool, but buyers aren't going to pay an extra $50,000 for that kind of stuff. When it comes to getting your projects approved, there is some red tape that you have to go through. How can somebody just ensure their project kind of goes through that process of approval without any hiccups?
Squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Yeah.
So that's the saying I always say. If you're on top of the city, always addressing comments, following up, then it's going to ensure kind of a speedy process. But right now in this day and age with COVID and the pandemic, it's proven to be a bit difficult now. I would say budget 6 months to a year in the planning phase now.
Yeah, I've been known in the past to drop off a box of Timbits with all your paperwork, so sometimes that helps as well.
Yeah, and for the architect as well.
Yeah, for the architect, yeah. At some point, you get to see the same city staff, and you get to know when their birthdays are. So that definitely helps put your paperwork at a better
top.
spot in the pile.
Yeah, 100%.
For sure.
Are you allowed to say that on TV?
Bribing's okay.
Yeah, well, there's no money involved. It's just Timbits, and maybe a couple coffees along the way.
Tim Beams.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Justin, Kristyn, this has been great. Thanks so much for joining us today. And thank you for joining us today on Real Estate Simplified. I'm Seth Ferguson. See you next time.